I purchased this house almost 4 years ago when I was 21 years old for about $400,000, and I regret it sometimes. And then I feel kind of guilty for regretting it because, I mean, there's a lot of people that wish they could or could have bought a house in their 20s, and I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on it, so we're gonna just jump right in. But first, I'm gonna talk about why and how I acquired the home. So you can use the chapters at the bottom of the video or in the description if you wanna just skip around to a certain question and answer. But we're gonna start with why, and then how I actually mustered the cash to get this place. I lived with my parents and my sister till I was 19, which is when I moved out into my first rental. But before that, when I was a teenager, one of my favorite things to do was to try and make money. Firstly, because I enjoyed buying stuff and money is useful for that, but also because I hated school and I wanted to get out of school as soon as possible. I knew that why are you in school? It's to make money. So if I can do it without school, I'm gonna do everything I can. And I was just throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. I would base my projects on what was most fun, and the first thing that I feel like I really poured my all into was running game servers. I ran a Minecraft server for 3 years and I loved it. And I also tried stuff that's just boring and just for money, like Amazon dropshipping, which I hated. I also got into reselling on eBay. I tried and failed to start a freelance graphic design business with a couple of friends. And of course, this whole time I was running a YouTube channel. That eventually led to things that made money, including ads on the videos, sponsorships, and printing and fulfilling merchandise. And starting all this as a kid meant that I had the most valuable resource, which is time. I had 24 hours a day to do whatever I wanted with, because once I started making a little bit of money, I convinced my parents to let me leave school and just do my own thing. And they were like, all right, yeah, you could probably figure it out. And I was like, I know I can. I was very cocky as a wee lad. Some people would say that I have not lost any of that cock. And then I hit that first summer where there was no school in my future. Like, this summer is just the start of my rest of my life. And I just jumped straight in. The first thing I did was turn my bedroom into a sweatshop, basically. And I mean, like, literally a sweatshop, because it was very hot in there. Because during the day, I was making YouTube videos and selling merchandise to viewers via those videos. And then at night, I was printing the merchandise that I had sold the day before. I realized that instead of using third-party sites like Teespring or Represent, if I print the merch myself, not only is it super fun and I loved fulfilling stuff, but I made about 30% more margins-wise on clothing, as well as even better margins on like posters and pins and other things. So I purchased a printing press sort of thing, and so I'm just up all night like printing however many shirts I sold that day. So some days it was 2 or 3 shirts, and other days if I released a new design, it was up to 40 or 50 shirts. That was so much fun. And this was the first thing that actually truly made like decent cash. It wasn't just $5 or $10 every so often, but it was like a few $100s a day. And I kind of just kept on growing the inventory. It was so much fun. I get excited just like thinking about it. And then I got a Japanese futon, so I would roll the futon out underneath the printing press. I honestly wasn't sleeping that much anyway, because I was trying to post daily and I couldn't do it, but I was posting multiple times a week to this YouTube channel, growing it as much as I could. And then my friend and I decided that we wanted to start a business together, but we wanted to make this like a true, actual registered business that could potentially last us a lifetime and make us money and see how far we could take it. Many of you, if you've been watching me for more than a year, you already know about it. That is, we were selling exotic animals. And thankfully, my parents let me use their bonus room as well. Now, the bonus room was about twice as big as my bedroom, so I tripled in space doing merchandise and videos in one room, and then storing animals in the other room. But it filled up almost immediately. I was very good at taking up space because we just had so much supplies and so many animals. Now, one of the very valuable things early on was my good relationship with my family, being that unlike a lot of kids my age that had a sense of urgency to get out of their parents' house as soon as possible, either because they're being kicked out at 18, or they had to go to college at 18, or they just wanted to leave. I didn't have that, and I was happy to live with my family as long as it was necessary until I was ready to go, and they didn't mind me being there. I didn't want to be like a deadbeat son just taking up space, but they were able to see that I was hard at work. However, I ended up not actually staying that long. It was when I turned 19 that I realized that the space just wasn't cutting it. If I kept growing, their entire house was just going to be a warehouse of my various projects, as well as I started to hire people for the first time. So when I was 18, I ended up hiring my first employee, and she was 27. And kind of like you do for an office, I gave her a key with my parents' permission to the house. And so on her own work schedule, she's like coming into my parents' house like, hello, I'm here for work. She like passes my dad in the kitchen who like got up to brush his teeth or get ready for work. It was very weird, but we were all okay with it. But yeah, I needed the space. So I rented a townhouse in August of 2019. It was 1,300 square feet, 2-bed, 2.5 bath. And I moved out of my parents' house. To make this video not too long, we're gonna now do a lot of fast forwarding to the next year, 2020, because at this point I had built up again so much that every single room in the townhome was filled to the brim with merchandise, supplies, and animals, including the bathrooms and the personal bedroom. So I expanded once again and rented a second house simultaneously. It was a 2,200 square foot home for about $2,200 a month. And so I was spending $3,500 a month on rental space. And surprise, surprise, I took up like all the space again. However, I did not rent a third home because spending $3,500 a month just on space was rough because I was building no equity. But worse than that, I actually didn't have proper permission to kind of do all of this. And I started getting in some hot water with neighbors and the landlord, and I needed to figure something out. Not to mention, the inspection was coming up for the second home, and they actually thought that I just had one cat and nothing else. There was actually 3 cats and about 75 animals in that home. So funnily, in this lease, there was a clause that said, if you're caught with an animal, you're going to get this base fine plus a $100 a day fine for every animal that stays in the home, which meant that I was going to start receiving $7,500 fines per day if they found out that I had animals. So long story short, there were so many reasons that I could not continue this lease, as well as it was just flipping expensive to rent 2 houses. So I either had to shut everything down or get another property. This time, however, I was gonna buy something. Whether I buy something commercial or residential was actually a very easy decision. Not to mention, I was so fatigued running the animal business that there was a decent chance that I was gonna shut it down within a year or two. And I didn't want to buy a commercial space and then have no use for it. So at least I can live in a house if I purchase that. Now on to how I purchased a home, because that's kind of a whole thing. Like, how do you even do it? Well, I Googled get mortgage fast because I needed a mortgage fast. And I clicked the first sponsored link on Google, which took me to better.com. Now, this is not an endorsement or a sponsorship. I don't know if you should use better.com. A lot of people say it sucks. It was fine with me. That's what I used. What is an endorsement is Rocket Money, which I use to track all my finances. It's so good. I check this app every day. It keeps track of my expenses, my income, my credit score, my net worth, and it notifies me when there's unexpected charges. It lets me know when bills are coming up. It keeps track of when I'm double charged for something. It auto cancels my subscriptions. It negotiates my bills. It does everything financially. If you want to use it, I have an affiliate link in the description. I get $10 if you download it, so thank you for that. Anyway, they said that they could get mortgages quickly and easily, so I started the process. Now, being self-employed, my income was going to be confusing, and I was a little worried about that. This was a hard time to buy a house because it was 2020 to 2021. Houses were selling so fast. Literally, houses weren't even reaching the listing sites because they were selling before they could even be listed. Like, it was so scary because I was like, I've been house hunting before with like family, and I didn't even know if I'd get that opportunity. Plus, I was so busy with work. I was like, when do I even get the time to look at houses? Also, I was purchasing the home under my personal name, just like on my own, no business affiliation, whatever. So it wasn't an investment home. It was just a personal home, which means that it's a personal mortgage. I don't know what it's called, but they didn't care about like business revenue or projected income or assets or like personal or business assets. They just cared about 4 things, which was getting a down payment from me, seeing how much debt I currently owe, my credit score, and 24 months of proof of income, proof that I have made money and will continue to make money. So I will be honest, I was a bit worried about my age and like being profiled, because when I purchased a car a few years ago, it was a bit difficult because I just felt like every place I went into, they just were very standoffish. Some places didn't even let me test drive anything because they just didn't believe that I was actually there to purchase. And I was just kind of put off by that. But I'm happy to say the mortgage didn't care. Okay, so where'd the money come from? How did I make the income? Well, it was mostly from the YouTube channel that I had been building, but everything was important. They wanted to see all of my, like, everything. They wanted it all. So I was sending screenshots of my YouTube analytics and of my bank statements and of my PayPal invoices to clients and of the contracts that I was doing with sponsorships. They wanted to see all of the money I've made because the mortgage guy wants to show the mortgage lender, like, hey, my client here has a lot of money, so please give him this loan so that I can get paid as well. So yeah, they asked for the past 2 years as well as the last 30 days, as well as at the end, because this process took time, like they would ask me for the last 7 days of income or the last 3 days of income, because each day that passes, they're like, all right, let's see how much money you made yesterday. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. And I'm sending them more screenshots. And it was like, it was so stressful because I was like on a super tight timeline. And okay, I didn't do anything bad, but to explain it briefly, the exotic animal sales I was doing was not actually just sales going out, but it was also sales coming in where people would pay to send me animals. Basically, people pay me to get rid of their animals, and we had a wait list for this. So once we had space open up, someone new could come off the wait list and pay me, and I'd take their animal. Well, I decided I was just going to open the entire wait list, and although it would take a while, everyone can pay me now and you secure your spot. And these payments were between $125 and $350. And so those came in. I also started selling digital gift cards to my, like, the merchandise as well as the animals at discounts to entice people to give me money now as like an IOU, and then IOU merchandise in the future whenever you want it. So if you wanted $250 in rewards, you just pay me $200. Hey, look at that. If you were going to spend $250 on the site anyway, why not just give me $200 now? I'll give you $50 extra. So, but in the end, I did fulfill those orders and gave some people refunds. So I kind of just got like a little tiny interest-free loan for a little bit. They then, of course, asked for my tax returns. And it turns out I actually didn't make enough in 2018 to purchase a home. So I needed my 2019 and 2020 tax returns, which meant that I actually had to wait till the new year, and then I had to file my taxes, get that return, and then show that to them. So I begged. I got on my knees and just was begging my accountant to file my taxes as fast as physically possible. I was emailing him every day, like, please, for the love of God, I will do anything, file my taxes now. And he actually pulled through. He filed my taxes like 2 months before he said he was going to initially, which helped so much because instead of April, it was like February. And my goal was to get this house by March. But there was one problem with my tax returns because they pumped them into their system and they said, hold up, you haven't paid your 2020 taxes. And I was like, yeah, I filed an extension, which is allowed. I have till September or something to pay them. And they're like, yep, nope, we don't give you a mortgage if you have any tax debt whatsoever. So if you want to continue, pay your taxes now. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. It was like 50 grand. And that threw me off a little because I was saving that money to use as my down payment. And then I was going to save up money and pay the taxes later in the year. But I had to pay the taxes immediately. But I did it. Man, it's kind of stressful just to think about. And it was almost 4 years ago. They ran a credit score check. It was like high 700s maybe. And then there was the down payment. And they said that I needed to pay 8%, which was about $32,000 on the home. Now I did have this, but I was cutting it close because I had paid my taxes, and I actually started selling off some of my stocks, which hurt a little bit, but what other choice did I have? I kind of had to do everything I could to get a home, I felt. I didn't really see any other way out of this, the little dilemma, little pickle I was in. So I had the money there. They saw the money, but the mortgage guy calls me and he's like, hey, Alex, so we need a 10% down payment. I was like, why? And he was like, I don't know. This is the Freddie Mac system is asking for 10%. Can you pay it? And I was like, no. He's like, all right, well, you don't get a house then. And I was like, okay, wait, I'll get the money. Now you gotta keep in mind, 2% is $8,000 extra dollars, which isn't like a small amount that I could just like, how do I get $8,000 really fast? Well, I did what I do best, and I just kind of manifested money out of the thin air. No, basically, I got an extra $8,000. I'll explain where it came from, but I got the money, and I'm like, all right, here it is. And he's like, hold up, where did this come from? And I was like, why does it matter? Just take the money, like, get me this house, please. He was like, yeah, no, we got to verify all money that comes in, because if this money is from a fraudulent source or if it's a gift, we can't work with that. I was like, what? Like, if someone just gives me money, I can't. But he was like, no, it was going to cause more problems if someone just was giving me money, like say a family member or a friend, because that's not necessarily reliable income, and they wanted proof of where it came from. Luckily, this money came from legitimate sources, but a bit weird sources. I sold off some additional stocks, and I sold my crypto. So I had to, I got nervous because everyone has these connotations about cryptocurrency, and I'm showing them like Coinbase wallets, like this is where it came from. It was scary, but it was okay, and they accepted the money. But in the end, I had unexpectedly paid like, I don't know, $50K in taxes, and I had to get this extra $8,000, and I had an overhead still of $7,000 to $8,000 a month, because I'm still running these projects and I'm still renting these homes. Now, I was able to break the lease with the first house, so I was still paying like $2,500 after bills and utilities for this second home while running all the stuff, and I was like, oh my god, this is so stressful. So in the end, I sold my entire stock portfolio, which it hurt. Like, it genuinely made me sad to click sell. I had traded, I saved up $15,000, I invested all that. I was using just an online brokerage, and I was able to trade the $15,000 into about $30,000. It was just like something I do in my free time. I would just research and I would buy and sell stuff, and it was so much fun, and I loved investing. Once I got to that 25K mark, I was day trading, and I got a little bit addicted to day trading and options trading, but I profited in the end. I doubled my money, which felt very good. I don't know if I was a good stock trader or if I got incredibly lucky, but either way, I sold it all, which not only was sad, but I had to pay short-term capital gains tax on it, which didn't feel too great either. So more taxes because I didn't hold the stocks long enough, but it is what it is. And or is it? Is it? Maybe it's not what it is. Maybe I should stop all of this and just cancel the house. I don't know. I kept going. I was freaking out, but I didn't know what else to do. But in the end, they approved me for the loan. I'm usually not one to get financially stressed out. Like, I take just big financial risks just for fun and to see what happens. But I have to admit, I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just guessing along the way, and everything was happening so fast, and they kept asking for information, but I just followed all their instructions, did what they would ask, and normally the mortgage process takes up to, I think, 60 days. Like, it's normal for a mortgage to take like 2 months to get. But somehow, better.com, again, this is not a sponsorship, but I was pleased with what they did. They got me a mortgage, start to finish, in less than 20 days. I was very impressed, and I was so grateful. My accountant came in clutch. The mortgage guy came in clutch. Everything happened in less than 3 weeks to get me about $350,000. Like, they just handed me over $350,000 after a couple weeks of, hello, here's my YouTube channel analytics. I got it at a 2.625% interest rate. This interest rate is, of course, what I'm going to pay the bank back as I'm borrowing their money. It's the fee that they get. It's why they let me borrow the money in the first place. The average interest rate when I purchased this home in 2021 was 3%, which the charts that I can find, they go back to like the 70s. In my lifetime and in the lifetime of my parents, interest rates have never been this low, and as of recording this, they have never been that low since. If I had purchased this home 12 months before or 12 months after, I would have gotten double the interest rate. So somehow I got incredibly lucky that the one moment I could and needed to buy a home was the one moment that interest rates were the absolute lowest they had ever been, which means I bought the dip. I couldn't believe it. For context, I will pay on this home $150,000 that just goes to the bank to be like, thanks for the loan. here's $150,000 over 30 years. If I had bought this house at any other time, I would have paid a minimum of $350,000 in interest. Now, houses are more expensive, and hopefully the prices will drop in the future because it is more expensive today to buy a house than it ever has been. And so ultimately, yes, I got low APR, but it was an expensive house. This house is not worth 400 grand. This house kind of sucks, which I'll get into. But just because APR goes up doesn't mean that housing prices drop, because a year after I bought this house appreciated in value to $450,000 and APR went up. So if I had tried to buy this house a year later, I probably wouldn't have qualified. Yeah, I would have been paying more interest for a more expensive house, even though it's the same house. So I don't know how this will come across, but I just always think about luck favoring the prepared, because I cannot deny there was so much luck involved in this process, but I also cannot deny that it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't prepared myself for it. Like, it truly was 50-50 in my control and out of my control, because I had managed to make enough money early enough that I could take advantage of that dip in the housing market and purchase a home. So we've talked about the lucky, we've talked about the good. Now we're going to talk about the not so lucky aspects. And I guess you can kind of gauge if the lack of luck outfavored the luck, if it was the right decision or what. I don't know. We'll see. So to be clear, I don't want to sound like I'm whining, but I also want to be honest about the home. Okay, yes, the APR was incredible. I was so grateful I had the assets that I could sell, that I had built up to get the house, but this house has cost a lot of money since I purchased it. Way more than I expected every year, like tens of thousands of dollars more. Now, for starters, this was the only home I saw. Houses were selling so fast, I didn't even see a point in looking at houses because everyone was buying them so fast. It was like, all right, it's time to start looking for houses. I looked at this one, I bought it the same day. Like I put a bid in, whatever it's called. I had seen it for like 15 minutes and it seemed like a house. So I was like, all right, I'll get this one. I got a home inspection and this is not a joke. Like, I wish I had a Bible here that I could like swear on, because I swear on my life, I will never get a home inspection again. It's a complete waste of money. In my opinion. When people ask me, hey, should I get my home inspected? No. I paid $1,000 and an actual like imbecile inspected the house. It was the highest rated home inspector on Google in the area, 5 stars, 1,000 reviews, whatever. He missed everything, and I didn't really get to look at the house, not to mention I didn't know what to look at in a house. So in the future, I hate home inspectors. I'm literally just racist towards them. So if you're a home inspector, sorry, I had one bad home inspector experience. Now I hate all of you. I'm going to inspect it myself next time. I'm just going to save my $1,000. The water was completely contaminated. It was so bad that I couldn't even shower in it. It smelled terrible. It had so much heavy metal in it. It's on a well and septic, non-potable, non-showerable water. I wouldn't even feed it like to my chickens. So I had to dump money into a water filtration system, which was $6,000. I also maybe could have found a better price, but I was in a rush because I didn't have any water. It works though, it's good. I also had to get a water softener because the water was very hard, which is not a health risk, I don't think, but $2,000 on a water softener. Then for some reason, I just got super unlucky and the well bladder and well pump failed very shortly after getting the house, which was an extra $1,000. The water heater failed, which was $2,000. And so in the end, like shortly after buying the house, after spending way more than I expected, I had to drop an additional $10,000 just on getting the water drinkable. That was just the beginning. The electricity is bad. Like a third of the electricity in the house doesn't even work. The heating is unreliable. Oh, the refrigerator was broken. I don't know how the inspector didn't notice, but I hadn't even really seen the house. I thought I paid the inspector $1,000 so he could tell me the fridge was broken. He didn't notice. So I had to buy a new fridge. The dishwasher was broken. I had to buy a new dishwasher. Everything was adding up so much more than I expected. And then the windows started falling out of the house. They're very old windows. Most of the windows are being held in with duct tape. The window up here doesn't really qualify as a window. It's completely broken. It's not a great house. I love the town I'm in. I love the neighborhood. I like my neighbors, and I love the property so much. It's an acre. It's not massive, but it's plenty of space for me. And it actually, like in the spring, feels like a little fairy tale fantasy world. I think it's beautiful, but the house itself just sucks. It's just not a very good house. I wish I could just like tear it down and rebuild it, but it's nicer than plenty of other houses. It is not nearly worth $500,000. This house is worth like $120,000. I don't know. The last time this house sold, it sold for like $200,000. It's more than double. It's all just inflated prices because of the housing market. And at the end of the day to day, I'm just paying for something that is now useless to me. I shut down the exotic animal business. I no longer print merchandise. I'm not really home ever. The house is empty, and all year I've just been paying for something that serves me basically no purpose. Like, I sleep here sometimes. I don't even sleep here all the time. And I also just don't make the income that I used to. I truly do believe that I can get my income back up there someday, but I am house poor right now. I don't have time to build other stuff and make other things and build up my income because I spend all day paying for what I do have right now, that being this house. Of course, some people will be like, well, you're also paying for the cars, but the cars are individually profitable and 2 of them are paid off. So it's just like the house is the one thing that's here. I'm not paying it off anytime soon. And in the end, it costs me about $2,400 a month to keep this home, which is a good price. Like, it's a very good price, especially if you're watching this from California or from New York City. You're like, what? I pay like $4,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment and I don't even get any of the equity, which I will kind of touch on shortly. But for me personally, I'm paying $30,000 a year to keep this home, and that's a lot of my income now. And that's for the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the bills, the utilities, and the maintenance, or not including the maintenance actually. Like, I wake up, I spend all day working, and oftentimes I don't even come back to the house. I just sometimes go to sleep where I am. I like car camping. It's very convenient if I am far away. Or if I'm exhausted. Usually I come back to the house, but I don't really need to. There's not even any working heating in this upstairs. The house is in shambles. My work-life balance is in shambles, and my social life is definitely in shambles. And yeah, I just can't open up the time to work on things to try and inflate my income. So I'm just like steadily all year making it by, making enough, working a lot, paying all my bills, paying down my debts. But I still have not recovered from the unexpected expenses of fixing this house, just all the way back to 2021, from that original extra 2% of the down payment to the thousands of random repairs that I've been doing. As you know, I do a lot of them DIY, but it's still not the cheapest. Look, I am still so glad I got it to work out. I think it was the right choice. So as an example, like a thought experiment I kind of do is, let's say I was renting this house, and let's say my lease ends at the end of December, end of this year. What would I do? Honestly, I decided, not that it matters, that I wouldn't renew this house. I would actually probably not rent anything for a bit. I have some chickens, and I would probably try to find someone to take the chickens, preferably temporarily, but details don't matter because this is a hypothetical. And I would put my stuff into storage. I don't have much stuff. It would all fit in the tiniest storage room, whatever. I'd need to park my car somewhere, but I would honestly either rent something really tiny and pitiful that I can come back to as a home base and then just travel around in my car for a bit, or do a dream that I've had for years, which is rent Airbnbs just around the country. I would just use it to live in different places and explore and make content about it. Or build a tiny home, but most likely even just straight up van life for a bit, live out of the car, get a van, who knows? I don't know. There's a lot that I want to do because my hobbies and interests no longer line up with the original reasons I purchased this house. I have no plans to get more animals, aside from maybe a cat someday. I have no plans to build a product-based business anytime soon, so I don't need the storage, and I don't need the warehouse space. What I want to do is socialize, hang out with friends, and explore, and work hard on projects. But I haven't gotten to do that yet because I just keep on paying for this empty house. So again, I love this part of town. I love North Carolina. The neighborhood's great. I wouldn't change anything about the location and the back. I just love chilling in the backyard, but I don't even get to really enjoy the backyard because I am either out of the house making money or in my attic editing videos. And I love editing. I love filming. I'm house poor. That's the best way to put it. Am I poor? No. Am I broke? No. I have my net worth keeps growing because of the equity in this home. So, okay, that's a lot of whining, Lil Herp man. What are you gonna do about it? Well, I'm gonna do what I do best, and that's monetize things that aren't intended to be monetized. I bought this house with the intention to monetize it, not really to live in it. I'm not really living in it, so I'm gonna try to do it again. I'm gonna try to monetize the home. I'm gonna get more roommates, and I'm just going to try and crank out some cash from it. I got roommates once this year, but money wasn't really the focus of it. It was more of a experience and hanging out with friends. This house isn't homey anyway. People would come to the house and they'd be like, wow, this is a miserable, sad, pitiful, dilapidated, empty house. I'd be like, what are you talking about? It's so homey. I love it so much. It turns out, I realized earlier this year, I loved it so much just because I was living with my cat here. And my cat died earlier this year. And once he died, I was like, oh, yeah, this house is shit. And the reason I loved it so much was because I got to be here with my favorite little fella. So now that it's empty, now when people come and they're like, wow, this is abandoned, I'm like, yeah, I know. People say it smells like a model home, like nobody's ever lived here. I am the type of person to get attached to inanimate objects like cars, or even my childhood home I'd say I was attached to. I do not care about this house at all. It could burn down tomorrow and I would be like, oh, well, that'll be a good video. If it does happen to burn down, I swear to God it was not on purpose. But we're gonna try again. Roommate saga number 2. I just need to monetize this house so I can frick off and go do other stuff that I want. I've moved into the attic, which I'm gonna make a video on as well. I filmed the whole process, and I've got 3 rooms downstairs. They're big, they got nice bathrooms, and while I prefer living alone, I also prefer having a life. So I would rather sacrifice my solitude so that I can go do anything else, because what solitude is it when I'm out working all day? There's not even a reason to. So some other longer medium-term goals is, yeah, the property's here. I would love to build a tiny house and throw a tiny house in the backyard, rent the whole house out to a family. I would probably keep the garage though, so I can work on the cars. Or if I successfully boost my income again, get rid of all my debt aside from the mortgage, maybe I'll just truly turn the home into a homey home. No warehouse for animals, no tenants giving me money, just use the rooms for myself, for my hobbies, and for guests and friends to come and stay at. So right now, that can't happen because I'm just working too much to pay for this, as well as the other bills and debts that I have, whoopsie, built up over the past few years. So yeah, it was the right choice, I think, to move out at 19. I think the right choice to buy at 21, but now I'm 24, turning 25 in a few months, and you're gonna get to come along for the ride. Was it a mistake? What do you think? I don't know. I'm very curious your thoughts on this video. It's pretty long. So I look forward to showing you what's next, and if you would like to keep track of your expenses while supporting me at the same time, you can download Rocket Money with a link in the description. It's a very good app. And I always mention it because I genuinely really like it, and because I get $10 when you sign up with my link in the description. So thank you for that. That'll be it. I'm Alex, and thanks for watching.